What's going on, everyone? I wanted to make a quick update to address some things that have been brought to my attention, and also just to keep you guys in the loop about my progress with the build. So let's jump right in. First, for those of you who haven't been to my stream, I just want to let you know that I re-rolled my character on Softcore Trade League. I did this because when I die, it makes it much harder to continually update this guide for everyone on YouTube. I also plan to make a lot more builds throughout this league, and I believe that Softcore Trade is a better fit for this type of content. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the new skill setup. For my main skill gem setup, I'm using the same 5 links I mentioned in the previous video, which are Exsanguinate, Efficacy, Chain, Unleash, and Brutality. But for my 6th link, I decided to go with Cruelty. I'm also using Stormbrand with Hex Touch support and Vulnerability until I can get a Vulnerability on hit ring. And even when I get this ring, I will still be using Stormbrand alongside Void Sphere to get more stacks of Corrupting Fever in situations where I need them. Now when it comes to the low life setup, I had previously suggested Pride with the new Arrogance support to reserve 50% of your life. But what I didn't realize was that the Arrogance support had a reservation multiplier like the old school Blood Magic support, which was pointed out to me by a kind viewer on Twitch. We discussed this problem for a bit, and we think that using the Arrogance support for Herald of Purity is probably the best option. Then you would use an Empower with Pride and Malevolence to reserve your mana. It might also be worth utilizing a Prism Guardian to further reduce the amount of life reserved and for the extra possibility of fitting something like War Banner into the low life setup. And speaking of War Banner, that is another skill worth using in this build, and if you aren't already using it, you should consider squeezing it in where you can. I also wanted to mention the Circle of Guilt ring for your Herald of Purity. It might be worth looking into for more damage and less reservation. I'm not sure if the mod Herald of Purity has % reduced mana reservation still works if you're reserving your life with it instead though. That will definitely be something that I'd check out at some point. In my current setup, I'm still using 1 Cold Iron point and a shield. And yes, you can use 2 Cold Iron points if you want more damage and less survivability. But if you choose to go down this route, you will have to make some adjustments on the tree. When I do a complete version of this guide in a finished POB, I will most likely include a version that utilizes 2 weapons instead of a shield for people who would want that. If you choose to use a shield, keep an eye out for +1 to all physical spell skill gems, as this will boost your damage by quite a bit. And while we're on the subject of weapons, I want to quickly talk about possible upgrades to the Cold Iron point. It is possible that with some in-game wands you can do more damage than Cold Iron points. If you decide to take this character that far into the endgame, then some mods you would want to look for are +1 to physical skills, +1 to all spell skill gems, cast speed, and fizz damage over time. Because the cast speed of Exsanguinate is pretty low, more cast speed can mean a pretty big boost in overall DPS for the build. And it might even be possible to do away with the Unleash support altogether and sock it in something like Controlled Destruction if you can get your cast speed high enough. I personally feel like that would be difficult to do with this setup, but it's something that I thought I'd mention for anyone out there that might want to go down that road. As for chest piece mods, you could go for the additional curse mod on a hunter base and rock a Witchfire brew for Despair Curse on top of your vulnerability. Or you could also go with a Shaper or Warlord chest for the +1 to level of socketed active skill gems. This is something I'd recommend POBing with your character to see which option nets you more damage. If I had to guess though, the extra curse is most likely more DPS. And speaking of adding more levels to gems, I had the question come up on Twitch the other day asking what the max level is that a gem could reach. I did a little searching and came across a couple different posts saying that 40 is the max gem level, but this may be due to game limitations and not just some rule added in by the developers. And lastly, I had another question about boot enchants, so I'll recommend a couple that I think are good options. Increased attack and cast speed if you've killed recently would most likely be the priority enchant. As I previously mentioned, the more cast speed you can get with this build, the better it feels. So this enchant seems like a perfect fit. There is also the damage leached as life if you've killed recently enchant, and the regenerate percentage of your life per second if you were hit recently. Both of these I think are great for some added survivability if you feel like your particular setup needs that. And that about covers it. I'll be sure to keep you guys updated about the build over the coming days. Make sure to stop by my stream where I'll be playing this build pretty much every day. If you liked this video or found it helpful, let me know by giving it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe for more gaming related content.